All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Demonic Discussions podcast. I am your co-host with the most, Cameron Pierce, and today I am joined by none other than the Magic Man himself, Jake Phillips. We have the wonderful Macy Monahan, and we have a special announcement. If you stuck around last episode, you saw we had the Northwest Possessed Slider team come on for an episode, and if you remember Emma Weber, we did some talking with her. We got a contract written up, and we are glad to announce that we have signed Emma to become a co-host with us. It's costing us a lot of money to ship a crap ton of pizza rolls over to Seattle for her, and all that is payment, but we got to do what we got to do for the podcast. So, Emma, if you'd like to say some words, introduce yourself just a little bit, and let's get this thing rolling. Emma, the floor is yours for a quick second.
Hi, my name is Emma. I'm super excited to be a part of this. If you missed the last episode, which would be a shame, pause everything, go back really quick, then come back. I've been acting for 10 years. I am based over in Seattle at Now Nightmares, so we're making it coast to coast now.
All right, perfect. So, to introduce our very special guest on this episode, I'm going to pass the reins over to Jake, and he will introduce our guest for this episode.
All right, guys, what's up? So today we have somebody, it's truly an honor to have him on. We have Joseph Bodkin, a.k.a. Pongo Joe, across all social media sites. Joseph, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah. All right, so we wanted to start off with a couple of introductory questions we had for you. So first off, can you tell us how you got into the haunt business?
Yeah, so I got into the haunt business around 2010. I was driving to school like I always do. I think it was Calhoun Community College at the time, and I'd always go past this old food mart Food World or whatever. But I noticed they were doing some construction and all kinds of stuff, and all of a sudden there was a sign out there saying haunted house, and I got really excited. I'd done plays and I'd done theater and stuff, but I've never done a haunted house before. So I finally worked up the courage somewhere. It was probably late August. I drove into the parking lot, and there was a few people hanging around. And I was just kind of starstruck at the time, because I was like, "Ooh, this is so new and everything for me." And the boss guy was out there, who ended up being Shane Dabbs, he's done haunted houses in Alabama before, and he was opening up this new one called Disturbia. And I was like, "Hey, can I work here?" And he looked at me and he was like, And he said, "Come on." And I went in for an audition, and I was opened up to this brand new world of just awesome stuff. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. My first year was great. Really went from 0 to 60 just like that. And I was in it. I was in the haunt.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel you there. I started off doing plays in high school and everything, and I was a thespian and stuff like that, and I kind of applied another one on a whim. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I get that. All right. So I guess the next question we wanted to ask you was, so you created several original characters. You've created Pongo the Clown, you've created the Boogeyman, you've created Mr. Nope, you've created all these original characters. And I guess one question that I wanted to ask is, who is your favorite character to play on any given night?
That's really interesting, because I played 3 characters this year, and how I did it kind of like a play style, where another scene happens, you go and you change into another costume like it's another day or whatever, but I was changing different characters. So it was doing it in one night. I would do Mr. Nope sometimes at the beginning of the night, and then I'd transition to Old Gobs, and then I would do the Hunter at the end of the night. And sometimes I'd mix up the order. And doing it that way, I got so many different responses from the audience. And the different nights also played into it. So some nights I was like, ooh, man, this is really cool. The Hunter's doing really well. I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling intimidating. I'm spinning my guns. And people reacted to me in like a very different way. But then if I brought out Mr. Nope, which was like, I concocted him out of like, I want people to just stay away from me. This year, definitely, I'd have to give it to him because it's just been a riot playing him. Everybody's absolutely appalled by his appearance. I can just be generally creepy and just be a thing instead of like, this humanoid character. It's weird that these characters, sometimes they compete because like the year before I was primarily doing Hunter, and I always do Pongo when I have a chance. But there are times these characters they'll be like primary characters, and then they're like more supporting characters. Like this year, I guess I would say the Hunter was more of like a supporting character this year. So it changes. It honestly changes.
All right. Well, that's awesome. And I guess the final question for you from me this evening would be, so you've guest acted at lots of haunted houses, not just Netherworld, but like all over the country, I'm assuming, at
Yeah.
least all over the South. And I was going to ask you, what would be one haunted house that you want to act at that's like on your bucket list that you haven't had the chance to visit yet?
Yeah. I got, I definitely have some in mind. Since I did this vampire character, the Boogeyman, I thought to myself, man, I really need to go to a haunt in like New Orleans or, just somewhere in Louisiana, just to kind of get that cool vampire Anne Rice feel. I do know that there's New Orleans Nightmare and 13th Gate, which I'm a little more familiar with 13th Gate in Baton Rouge. I know some of the people there, but yeah, those places are definitely like on a bucket list to go scare at, as well as House of Torment out in Austin, Texas. I've known some of the actors there for quite some time. In fact, many years ago, there was an actor or an actor coordinator who came from that haunt and went to my first haunt, Disturbia. And they actually are responsible for teaching me how to slide. So I kind of have some sentimentality for that haunt. So yeah, those are definitely on my bucket.
So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Cameron next.
All right. So I got 3 questions as well for you. So this kind of tends more into the slider type stuff as well, because we all know you're a very prominent in the slider community. Obviously, with the TikTok that blew up when you did the song Colossus by Avatar, that was the one that blew up. And I believe Avatar gave you a little bit of recognition for that as well, didn't they?
Yes, actually, that was no mistake. Their manager actually contacted me because I had been doing some TikToks to some metal songs. Because at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of like metal presence on TikTok, and I've always been a big metal fan. And the manager hit me up and he was like, "Hey, I see you're an Avatar fan, and you got this cool makeup. Well, what would it take, to like do a video and stuff, do like a little 15-second thing? Because hey, this new album's coming out." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, oh holy crap!" And I was like, "Can I, get an autograph and a shirt?" And that's exactly what they gave me. And I made a TikTok to their new single Colossus, and I'm so glad it went really well.
Oh yeah, and I will say you're the one that got me addicted to listening to a lot of Avatar stuff whenever I saw that. So they definitely earned a new fan off of that. So that actually kind of ties into this question: is what made you gravitate towards wanting to get into the sliding scare tactic that is out there in the haunt industry today?
Yeah, so that's a fun story. I had never heard of it. I had never seen it. It was definitely a word of mouth kind of thing. My manager at Disturbia said, "Hey, you're a pretty good actor. You're very like nimble and very like energetic, I guess." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, cool." And he's like, "You should try and be a slider." And I was like, "What the hell is a slider?" And he's like, "No, no, no, it's really cool. You ever heard of Not Scary Farm?" And I was like, "No, no, this is my first haunt. I don't know Jack." And he was like, "Well, just let me show you." And he brought out some knee pads, and he gave me like an old pair of his and some steel toe boots. I didn't even have any gloves or anything. And he showed me how to do it, and I was like, "Oh man, this is great." And I remember sliding for the first time and thinking, "Oh, this is so like exhilarating." And then scaring somebody for the first time using sliding, I was like, "Ooh, oh my goodness. This is the bee's knees right here. I gotta keep doing this." And so I absolutely became obsessed. And at the time, it was very hard to find resources on sliding. Um, like you'd see a few forums here and there. Some of the Knots folks that I did find were very hush hush about it. They didn't want to talk a whole lot about the gear. There was this strange secrecy surrounding it. And there's still a little bit of that to this day, but there's so many like resources and stuff. But anyways, I became like obsessed with it. I watched everybody at Knots, and I started, hobbling together gear, making it better. And I slid at Disturbia, my first haunt, my second year. And then in like my second year, I didn't even know how to make gloves. So I had to learn how to do that. And then finally my third year, I was getting a little bit better. And then my fourth year, I actually moved to another haunt. I went to Warehouse 31 down in Birmingham. And that's when I really started to like figure things out. Really, really trying to, get the good scares. And of course, being in the South, everybody's like, "Hey, you gotta go see Netherworld. Netherworld is this awesome haunt. It's like the Disneyland of haunted houses. You gotta go see it." So this was like, 2011, I think. Yeah, I think that's the first time I saw Netherworld, and I was just blown away because they had done sliding even more different than the California folks that I had seen. Like big sparks going down a huge hill, super just spectacle, and so I kept learning. I learned a lot from Devin and Lee Pennington, and it's just been great. It was an awesome thing to learn, and I love having it in my toolkit. I like adding tools, to my haunter's belt, I guess.
Yeah. And of course, when it comes to the sparks and all that, with the West Coast, I've kind of noticed with the West Coast style, because I talked a good bit with Cody, and he said that you had talked about how there's a difference between the West Coast and the East Coast and how different actors do different things. And I've noticed with the sliders on the West Coast, it's not really as much sparking in the West Coast as it is over here on the East Coast.
Right.
Because then you get someone like Cody, who's literally a walking fire hazard of scraps. And a big shout out to Cody. If you're watching this, we go get you on this show at one point, brother. But, I mean, that's the thing is like, I do see what you're talking about, because well before I even started haunting, I fell in love with seeing these sliders, and I was trying to figure out how to get my own stuff. And I know what you were talking about by like, there wasn't a lot out there, because obviously now you got Facebook groups, you got like Slide Till I Die. You got all these people that actually want to help grow this tactic to what's usually been kind of a secret order type deal. They're wanting to make it to where everyone can do it if you got what it takes to, hold your own in the knee pads. So,
Right.
So getting away from sliding just for a little bit. So when it comes to how you scare, what is your psychology of the scare? When you go into a night, what is your psychology going into each group scare?
Oh man, it's like a recipe. You're thinking of, something that you want to make, and you start gathering ingredients, and you think, well, if I cook it for this amount of time, it could be a little more well done. If I cook it for this amount of time, a little too early, whatever. But you come in with this mind, this end result, and you start adding things, and then it just starts changing. And that's what it's like, going out for the night. Especially, every time I make a new character, I conceptualize with these characters and my expectations and what I think I want for them. But of course, when I go out into the audience, it changes. The crowd. That's what's so interesting about haunting, is the crowd can be so interactive. They say something, you say something, and then all of a sudden you've gone off on this, interesting tangent. And I think my idea is, just play along, and, don't worry about exactly where it's going. Just see where it goes, how that journey is going. That's kind of my approach, and I am so thankful that it always managed to turn into something interesting. I've always been a big fan of improv, and not just scaring but comedy. So if I can scare them and make them laugh, I'm very satisfied. But I guess as far as some of the tinier ingredients that you're putting into it, I get a lot of inspiration from voice actors. I love video games and stuff like that. Some of my favorite movies, like Gremlins, or going off into the Disney stuff. Like, I love Lion King. I love Jim Cummings, who plays Ed the hyena. And the more you look at some of these things as an adult, you're like, man, that hyena is super sketchy. And you think to yourself, wow, I am in an environment that I can be super sketchy to people, and I want to see what they do. And so you just try different things, and it's all about play for me. And I know that was a lot and not terribly focused, but in a roundabout way, that's kind of where I go when it comes to scaring people and entertaining them.
Oh yeah, and that's actually the way that you put that. That is extremely interesting, but it makes a lot of sense how you put that. How you're essentially going to the grocery store to get these ingredients like that. That's a perfect analogy, and that I'm just gonna be honest, that was a beautiful response.
Yeah, I literally wrote that down. Hunting is a recipe.
So this is gonna be my final question, and then I'm gonna go on and pass it over to Emma. When portraying different characters, what is your process in bringing out these different mentalities and these different levels to each character that you play? And I guess you kind of got to expand on that a little bit more. As you said, you kind of did this more like a play this year, where you would go in and out in one night. Mm-hmm. So what is your process to adding these different levels to every single character that you do?
Yeah, so sometimes the layers, they add up over time. Mm-hmm. Like the vampire character, I've done, you know, some vampire stuff in the past, like some of the events like Love Bites or you know, My Bloody Valentine, where, you know, vampire characters and stuff are super appropriate. But I always played them very feral. I always, you know, I always thought of like 30 Days of Night, and I kind of felt stuck in that box, so I didn't do it, you know, very much. And you know, with this character, I was like, you know what if I had him in the 70s? What if he was a party guy? What if he was just very lonely and he liked being around humans? And all that stuff started just layering itself over the next like couple months. I think I thought about it, and I started putting stuff together for this vampire character for like 6 months. And then I made Mr. Nope in like 2 days, because I was just hit with something like a friend of mine put these shoulder pads on, and then she put on a suit coat with it, and I'm like, God, that looks so ridiculous. And I was like, oh, I want to look ridiculous. And then, oh boy, I had this big hair and then crazy face, and it all started coming together. I remember putting it on for the first time, and I was like, this looks like this weirdest, odd proportioned thing I've ever done. And you know, it's so weird because it happened so fast, where like other characters really had time to like ruminate. Like I felt that way with the Hunter character. I thought about the Hunter character for like a year before I actually put them together. So it's interesting, like how it all just kind of comes together.
Yeah.
But again, that's just the first half. The first half is that, you know, concept. But then when you're out there and you have all these people to interact with, all these little changes start happening. Mr. Nope started becoming more childlike. I had him being like intimidating, kind of like Michael Myers at first, but then he got like really cute and like adorkable. And
kills me.
Yeah, I had the Pee Wee Herman doll. And
Oh God, the Pee Wee Herman. Like, okay, Garrett at Netherworld, he asked me, he was like, you know Pongo. Like, ask him, what is it with the Pee Wee Herman doll?
Why not?
Oh my God. It was like, people are also afraid of dolls. But that came from a friend of mine. I've had that Pee Wee Herman doll for years, and I've had him just like set up. And my friend, she hates him. She can't stand him at all. She doesn't like when I pulled, like, his voice box is broken and it squeaks, and she just doesn't like it. And I was like, well, if you don't like it, chances are somebody else doesn't like it either. So I pull that out, and that became like this thing. I'd squeak it in people's ears, and they'd be like, gah! And all of a sudden you have this whole new playground of things that, you know, perhaps you just didn't think of. And you know, I've been haunting now for 10 years, and I'm always discovering new things. And that's just the best, you know. And you really do got to try. Again, it comes back to that, you know, willingness to play along. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely strange. And if I think it's weird, somebody else might think it's even 10 times weird.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's weird to you, it's got to be very weird. Sexuality.
Yeah, because I know, like, because I'm an avid Inferno Effects guy. Like, I love Adrian's work and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to him in one of his TikTok live streams, and Mr. Nope came up as one of the things, and he was like, I remember I got the message from Joe. He was like, he's like, I want the smiley mask. And I'm like, are you sure? And Joe's like, yeah, I want the smiley mask. He said he didn't know at all what you were going to do with it until you dropped the release photo for Mr. Nope. He said, I sat back laughing so hard. because he's like that. He's like, of everything that I've done for Joe, that is the most off the wall character I've ever seen him pull out with one of my masks.
Mr. Nope is bonkers. I adore him.
Thank you. He's just been a blast, and I'm gonna have him around for years to come.
Oh yeah,
Mr. Nope Mr. Nope is the thing in the back of my mind that I try not to look at.
But he just wants to hang out. Did you drink some water?
No.
He wants a hug. He wants a hug.
I'm good.
All right, so that's the end of my questions, and I'm going to pass this over to Emma.
Great. So my first question is, what is your favorite or just like your most wild story you have that happened to you while you were haunting? Like, what's the wildest thing?
Oh, let me think. I have a few. However, this event that I worked with Cody, who's the slider from Midnight Terror up in Chicago. His thing is, he took the sparking game like over 9,000.
He's a
like
walking fire hazard.
Everything he does sparks, and this haunt down in Georgia called Lake Joy. They have 2 locations. This one is and this was like the first time they were like messing around with this one. This was like the prison haunt. Like me and Cody talked about on the phone, we didn't know much about this place. There wasn't a whole lot. And the lady was just like, come on, we got to have you, we're having this event, come on down. And she asked me, like, it was a couple months ago, and I just didn't know what it was. And then I talked to her again, and then I talked to Cody, and we thought to ourselves, let's see what this prison haunt is all about. And we went down there, and oh my goodness, what an experience. The prison haunt was super creepy and just had that authenticity to it. And by authenticity, I mean it had like real dangerous razor wire fences, some of it in just giant piles lying around the property. And it was super nuts. And it was an extreme kind of haunt too. So you could touch people, you could, do all kinds of stuff. And I remember it was the second night. I was like, oh my God, how could the first night was great. How can we start really messing with people? So we went to Walmart and we started looking for fun things. And I found a giant fisherman's net that it looks like SpongeBob's, like an oversized SpongeBob jellyfishing net. It looks ridiculous. It looks cartoony, and it looks even funnier when a haunt actor, whatever they look like, is holding it, because it's just great. And so I was chasing people around and like capturing them in the net, and they're like, the net's in my hair. And I'd capture like 2 or 3 people in it, and we'd send them through the prison haunt, or I'd take them. We didn't know like the layout of this place. If you found a random closet, hey, there's a random closet, let's stick somebody in there. And this one guy, oh my God, he was so terrified. We had him in that closet for a good 15 minutes. And I remember opening it up and like shutting it in there. And I was in there with him, messing with him. And he's like, sir, I can't take it. I'm going to pass out. And I was like, if you pass out, I'm going to do something even worse to you. And he's like, okay, sir. And we had our fun and everything. And then it came time to get out. I was like, all right, well, I'm done with you. I'm going to shove you on out of here and send you on your way. But random prison closet, rusted door. When it shut, and we could not get out.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm like, well, shit. So I'm like banging on the doors, like, monster, anybody? I'm in here. And if I stay in here long enough, I'm going to eat this kid. Thankfully, it was either Cody or one of the other guest actors that came by, and they let us out. I was like, well, shit. What have I done?
You gave that man a story. That's what you did.
Yeah.
He has a tail.
I will tell you this because I know what you're talking about, because when they did the Friday the 13th show, it was at Putnam County Prison.
Mm-hmm.
And we went back for their Christmas haunt. And Miss Robin, if she's watching, thank you so much again for this. She let my friend Cole, Macy, and Jake here go through the extreme experience for free and allowed me to videotape it for the YouTube channel that the episodes are on for the podcast. So the whole like, I think it's like a 30-minute long video of them going through this extreme experience, getting whipped cream and glitter smeared all in their hair, duct taped to wheelchairs. It's all on here. And I'm actually really excited for, if Netherworld doesn't decide to run Valentine's Day, that I'm actually going to get the chance to do that.
Right.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's an experience at that prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely lots of fun. But as far as other stories, some of them I've been very lucky to like capture on camera. Like one of my favorite scares is this lady at the Trans World tour. I think they may have let some of the public in on this tour for the Darkness Haunted House. Well, or maybe she was there with somebody and didn't want to go in, but she was on the sidelines. And I love it when somebody like a security guard or like a haunt manager, what have you. I love when they come find me and they're like, hey, you need to get that one. Sick 'em, boy. And I'm like, whoa. And this lady is just off on the sidelines and she's doing everything she can not to look at me. She's turtling up. She's, just hiding behind her hands and everything. And I'm like, ooh, this is gonna be a great character moment. I don't need to slide at you. I don't need anything. I just need to talk some weird shit to you. And I was talking all kinds of weird shit to her, and somebody started recording it, and I'm just trying to get her to look at me, and it's just like a very like Joker moment. I'm just look at me or whatever. And I can just like feel like this aura of fear and dread just coming off of her. It was so much fun. Scares like that, they don't happen like all the time or anything, so it's kind of like a rarity. But when they do happen, they're just so much fun, and you can be like really theater about it.
I love it. Okay, so my other question is, because you're like us and haunting is year-round, never ends.
Mm-hmm.
So you're very much in the haunt industry like we are. What do you think are the like most wonderful things about the haunt industry, and what are some things you think could maybe change about it to make it a better place?
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good question. I love all the creativity. I've been to so many different haunted houses, and I've met, so many makeup artists, and, watching some of these concepts, like on paper, just drawing it out, and then watching it come to life, either, a makeup monster, whether it is, like a silicone mask that somebody's been sculpting forever, like Inferno effects. I love Adrian's imagination, and when we all start collecting together in all the various things that we do, and it's just another really cool, creative way to entertain people. And I really like, when it's a good team effort. It really takes a village to put together a haunt. And the actors, the crew, it's all something that takes a lot of hard work from everybody. And, that's a work ethic that sometimes, we don't always see. Haunters, whatever job that they have, they work really hard at it, really long hours, sometimes not, great pay. And it's just really special to see that passion. As far as things that, I would like to see change in the haunt industry, we have gotten very far in the last 10 or so years. We started, like as a business and everything, there would be volunteer haunts, or, it'd just be just very old school. And they've just gotten bigger and bigger and better over the years, to these just like Hollywood looking style, sets, special effects, to the point where it's become a massive, industry. It's not just this niche entertainment anymore. It's really on a big scale. And I'd like to see everybody mature with it. There's definitely a sense of professionalism that, there are many haunts that are professional, but, there are sometimes, it's like all topsy-turvy sometimes, because, I'll work one haunt where, they take really good care of their actors and everything is, really structured. And then I'll work another haunt that is just, people don't know exactly what they're doing. You don't know when your breaks are. You don't know what's going on. Just real lack of direction, But then there's this haunt down the street that is just like, 10 levels above that. And I'd like to see, as a collective, more professionalism, more, rising to the occasion, more maturity, I suppose. Because I do think there are times in the haunt industry where, it's not always, very inclusive. Sometimes it's kind of like, ableist sometimes. I think every haunt should be, wheelchair accessible,
That's a big thing our haunt does. We have an actor that he's in a wheelchair, so we have to build everything, and we always have him and obviously the customers in mind, but he volunteers sometimes to be our test dummy, to be like, can you physically get over this?
Right.
A lot of haunts don't do that, and it sucks because they want to go through too. Everyone wants to go through.
Yeah. This haunting, whether you're an actor or a customer, it should be for everybody. And as we grow, as big as we've gotten, that's definitely a standard and like a bar that should be set.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I know, like, at Netherworld, I had an experience with that because I was mostly in the second show this year, Cyborg Shock.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a position there called Bottomless Pit. I was in there a lot this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a 2-door pop scare. You got an air gun on this side, then you run down the hall, hit them on this side. In between those doors is a set of stairs and the bottomless pit, as it's called. Because if you look down, it's one of those illusions that looks like it never ends. And I go through, I'm in this gigantic EVA foam cyborg armor. I was one of the Metabots in the show.
Right.
And I come busting through with that air gun. First person I see in one of the groups is a person in a wheelchair with one of the Netherworld ushers right behind them, pushing them through.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see a big Metabot sitting there. I come through with that air gun. I look down, and then automatically I just step back, put my arm through, and just pull the curtain back. So they see a Metabot standing there with a clacker glove and an air gun in one hand, holding the curtain for a wheelchair person to go through. Meanwhile, these other people are going right by them, and I'm just clicking the clacker glove at their face as they walk by while the wheelchair's trying to get through. So I will say that Netherworld, and I've been to a lot of other haunts that are very much inclusive to people with disabilities like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's something that's good.
Yeah.
Hopefully smaller ones will catch up. It's a work in progress.
Right.
Okay, so My final question is, if you could travel back in time to yourself on your first day of haunting, what would be the biggest piece of advice you would give yourself?
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, I like the deep questions.
That is very deep. How long could I spend with myself? That raises like even more questions. My God.
Let's say you have like an hour or something. You get to have like a meal with them. You get to go out to a
Oh
dinner.
my God. I would just always say, hey, always believe yourself. This has the potential to turn into something that you never even dreamed possible. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm a dick like that, and my younger self would understand as well. But I would definitely keep pushing myself in the direction of haunting. I've thought about this question before. I was like, well, what if I gave myself a few tips or something, or what if I said, you should do this at this time, or you should do that at that time. Here's how I make the best gloves now, or whatever. And I was like, nah. I got this learning thing about me where I get it from video games, specifically the Dark Souls and the Demon Souls games, where their challenge is so hard. It is they're very hard games to play, and that's how life can be. It's a game of inches, and yeah, I'd tell myself savor every hard moment, even if it's just it makes you want to cry. Some of those nights where you're like, oh my God, my body just cannot go on like this. How am I doing this for like a whole month? Some of those questions that I asked myself when I was like younger or whatever. But I'd tell them just keep pushing through it and just savor every minute of it because it's going to turn into something awesome.
I love it. Well, that's the end of my question. So hand it over to Macy.
All right, so I really just have two questions for you. The first one being, I know that you've talked a little bit about like your vampire character, Mr. Nope, and how those came to be. But typically, do you just get like random inspiration for characters, or do you have a thought process that goes into it? And what actually goes into making the character?
Yeah, like I said previously, sometimes it starts out as like a little nugget of inspiration. Like for my vampire, I've always liked vampires, but I think the little nugget started with the BBC's Dracula. It's on Netflix. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, this is such an interesting way to, do a vampire. I love the style. And I started watching all the other, old Dracula stuff. And, one thing would turn into another and all these layers would happen. And when it came to, I think, the overall look of the vampire specifically, I wanted him to be blue. I wanted him to be flashy and frosty in a way. Like he was just very cold. He's probably, visually speaking, my most colorful looking character, because most of my characters run a theme of the very like monochromatic. They always have red, white, and black. It makes it easy. It's just kind of I don't know. It just kind of like jumps out at you. I love colors that pop, and so I always use colors like that. But the vampire is a little more different. And even with the makeup, I've gone through several iterations of the vampire's makeup, and though it doesn't look it doesn't look like Pongo's exactly, I had to do all these like little details and contouring just right. So the whole process of that was very different versus like say Pongo. Pongo has gone through I don't know how many different iterations. Pongo is, a character that I like to keep changing and evolving, just so it doesn't get boring. But initially Pongo came from a lot of like metal music. I love the band Ghost. I love having, this bit of elegance with a bit of grit. But they all come from different places. Like the Hunter is such a different character than, the other characters that I've done. And I liked old Western stuff. And I love, like I said, video games. Video games are a big influence on me. Metal Gear Solid was one of my favorite video games growing up. And the character Revolver Ocelot had these, these revolvers that he'd spin. I was like, oh man, I want to do that. I want to be able to entertain guests, not just by scaring them, but really like give them a show. So I learned how to spin guns, just so I could do that in the crowd. But really the main theme of it all is just these layers that just keep building. Sometimes it's a random nugget of inspiration. Sometimes, in Mr. Nope's case, it all came to me in like the matter of 2 days.
Gotcha. All right. So my last question is just going to be, to the people who've only been haunting for maybe a year or two, they like it, but they're not sure if they want to keep doing it, or they sometimes doubt themselves when it comes to their character, their acting. Mm-hmm. What would you say to them to encourage them to continue?
I would say, it's one of those things that is very hard. There are plenty of people to help. I would, first of all, I'd say do not hesitate to ask questions. Please ask as many questions as you can think of, because there's so many directions you can go with haunting. You might think to yourself, well, I'm not having a great time acting, but I might want to get into set building, or I might want to do makeup, or, do something else, within that realm. And I would definitely, encourage play along, see where all this stuff takes you. And there's going to be a lot of difficult times. There's going to be a lot of, times of self-doubt, especially as an actor. It can be very hard, starting out. A lot of us haunters are kind of very like awkward and not really big on big social interactions. So, when you go to a haunt, there's all these people, it can be very overwhelming. But I would definitely just say, hey, you got to stick with it. If you find a little group of people, find that little group, talk to them, and ask questions. It's the best you can do.
All right, perfect. All right, well, unless anyone else has any more questions, Cameron?
I'm actually going to elaborate on one. Oh, there she is. I'll go on and ask one last question, then I'm actually going to let Emma close out the episode a little bit because she has an announcement on our next special guest.
It's not confirmed yet. We still have to talk to her.
Got it.
But
so
hopefully,
to be announced.
If schedules do line up, we will hopefully be having one of my most wonderful friends, Hazel, on here, aka known as Mad Mischief on TikTok and social media. So she said she wants to be on it. We're just going to make sure schedules align. So she will be on it, hopefully the next episode.
Yeah. So for one final question before we end this out, when it comes to every single style of acting in the haunt industry, there's, jump scares, pop scares, there's the more interactive ones that you mostly see in like your midway and lot actors. Mm-hmm. Out of everything that you see there, you personally, what scare style do you tend to really enjoy more when it comes to every single different style of acting that you can think of?
I think if I really had to narrow it down, it would have to be the slow burners. I really enjoy the fast, high octane slide, pop scare, boom, boom, boom. But when you see somebody who is like, several yards, meters away from you, and they're doing their best, like poker face to like not look at you, they're hiding, behind a friend, they're doing anything to be, they're trying to be inconspicuous. And that's when the game starts. The game is afoot when you're like out in the crowd and you see that one person who absolutely does not like you. And all of a sudden you have this little dial in your hand that you can just keep turning. The closer you get, the little unpredictable movements you make with your character, you just keep ratcheting it up. And you can see like this little fear meter. It's like a little Richter scale going, da, 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 it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. And you can tell that you're driving this person mad. And you can also tell that they are fundamentally making it 10 times worse for themselves. Because if they had a good, long, hard look at you, they'd probably start getting desensitized. But no, they choose to not look at you. And it just starts spiraling. And then you start seeing these people, everything, every bit of armor, their poker face, all of it just starts falling off of them. And all that is left is you and me. The human beings, because it is the most natural, not terribly controlled response to be scared and that feeling of dread. So that's my absolute favorite kind. And that can manifest in being slow and creepy. That can manifest in, saying something that, just flipping something on its head, a turn of a phrase, just suggesting that you're threatening to somebody. So just suggesting that you might do something awful to them. You don't even have to touch them. You don't have to get, with Mr. Nope, I rarely had to get near anybody. But it was my absolutely just hands down favorite scare. The slow burn, crawling, skin crawling dread.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely get what you mean there, because at the haunt that I used to work at before I moved to Netherworld, I did my first 2 years as a more walk-around type actor. I actually, for those 2 years, I actually got to act with Emma's brother. And yeah, I know what you mean by the slow burners. And I remember I actually shot you a message not too long ago. It was probably right at about after you released The Hunter, and asked you about this guy here, the revolver.
Yes.
Because I was actually piecing together a remembrance costume for Emma's brother that tragically passed away. And I had talked to them, and they graciously allowed me to, try to do my best portrayal of his character, as close to it as I could. And this was his final wish, was to have a prop gun for his character, Ramsey.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
You actually helped me be able to get it together, because I didn't know what companies made what was good. Then I saw your video that you filmed at Sloss, and I was like, wait, let me message Pongo real quick. And then that's where I found out what it was. And sure enough, I mean, I'm still sitting here gunslinging today with it because of you helping me get all this together. And
awesome. That's so great, man. Awesome.
Yeah. So let's see, Jake, do you have any questions left?
No, but I do have to coincide with him about slow burn scares. Those are some of my absolute favorite things to do. It's just so unnerving for the people. You can completely see it on their faces. So I really enjoy getting to just, like, you don't even have to be like right up close on them. If they just see you hanging out in a corner or something like that, or if they see you waiting for them to come into your spot, or they know they're about to get something.
Yes.
And yeah, and it's just, it's a fantastic way to unnerve somebody.
Yeah.
So I have to agree with you there. So if nobody has any more questions, I think that we can go ahead and leave this episode here.
All right. So, once again, big thank you to Joe here for being willing to come on and hang out with us and just be able to talk shop with us. I know Emma was very, very excited about this episode, and what a way for her to start her time being a host here on the podcast with us. And thank you so much for coming out and, just being able to sit around and just chat with us for a little bit. And you got any social medias, anything that you'd like to plug? I know you're a very easy guy to find on social media, but if you got any, you can go on and plug it.
Yeah. So definitely, guys, thanks so much for having me. I did recently revamp my Twitter account. I'm still getting used to it. It's kind of like the new kid at school, and you're just trying to get the lay of the land. I've never really understood Twitter that much, but I'm on it now, and you can find me Pongo Joe or Joseph Bodkin. Again, it's another thing, trying new things. 2021. Let's see where we go.
Oh yeah. And I guess Pongo Joe is also the same for your TikTok and Instagram as well.
Yes. You can find me on all that.
I'm pretty sure we'll have the links down in the description of this episode. So if people want to find you that way, they can easily just find the links right there and they can follow you that way. But yeah, thank you so much for coming out. So yeah, like Emma said, if schedules line up and everything comes according to plan, hopefully on the next episode, there will be more to come about that. But we will have Hazel, aka Mad Mischief, on the show, hopefully on the next episode, but we will be talking here soon to iron out all the details of that. So if you like the episode, be sure to subscribe, and if you want to get notified when we drop another episode, be sure to hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified when we upload. And yeah, so for the Demonic Discussions podcast, we have Jake Phillips, Macy Monahan, Cameron Pierce, and now Emma Weber. And on this episode, we had our special guest, Pongo Joe. And we will be catching you guys in the next episode. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you later.